Hey everyone, welcome back to the Trend Crusher podcast. I'm your host, Peter K, aka Trend Crusher. Now, on this episode, I've got Chinmay Agarkar, aka Groovebot. He recently released a single with Anand Bhaskar of the Anand Bhaskar Collective and also Roop Thomas, and the single is titled Under Pressure. And I was very curious to know how he manages being a musician in addition to being a producer, so we chat a bit about that. Before we get into my chat with Chinmay, hit subscribe below to get notified and keep checking out interesting chats that I have with musicians. Probably I'll do some reviews in the future, who knows? But that's all. Here's my chat with Chinmay.
Hi, Chinmay. Welcome to the Trend Crusher podcast.
Thanks for having me. You're finally doing this. It
I
didn't
know.
happen last time. And I
Oh,
kept
man.
asking Ashwin, what is up? What is up? He's like, Are there's some technical issues
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
So,
So I'm going to put this out there, disclaimer. This is a long overdue chat actually with Chinmay and me, and especially around the Groovebot project. I mean, we did a chat last year, and let's just say the second wave of Corona happened, and then, yeah, I don't think we
yeah,
need
yeah.
to get into all of that all over
Into
again.
that, no.
Yeah.
We're
But
finally out of it. So,
yeah, and but the good thing is, I mean, before we get into Groovebot, it was so nice to see you after a long time performing live again with Paradigm Shift, and especially you were opening for Bloodywood. What a night that was! Tell me what it feels like to be back on stage again.
we were so happy also. We hadn't rehearsed for a long time.
Hmm.
So, it sort of gave us a chance to catch up. And we counted, it was, I think, almost 30 months.
Wow.
Like, yeah, so almost like 2.5 years or like 2 years for sure since we sort of got together and jammed because gigs weren't happening at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the gig part is always there that we got a chance to play live. But I think my best part about the gig was we got together with everybody again. And yeah, so that happened. Hangs happened basically.
Yeah, yeah. That's a nice way of putting it. But yeah, and we finally got to meet up after a while, so it was great just to catch up
Oh,
and
yes.
know
Yes.
that Groovebot is back with a new single. So tell me about the new single. I mean, like I'm really excited when I happened, thanks to our mutual friend and my very good friend Ashwin Sharma, I got a pre-listen to the track and on
Right.
let's be I'm going to put my initial thoughts here, right? When you
Oh,
hear
yeah, for sure.
Groovebot featuring Anand Bhaskar, you're just like, but wait, is it going to be in Hindi? Because most people kind of know Anand as the
Correct.
the voice behind a lot of Hindi playback songs. Then if you know him from Anand Bhaskar project, again it's in Hindi. So I was like, what is
Right.
this? And then you see, okay, that's there. Then you have Roop Thomas, who again is another person who's known in the Bombay rock scene. It's like, okay, what's really happening on this track? Like, as far as I remember, Groove Bot was a bit of industrial and all of that. So
Right.
let's start off with how the whole collaboration happened with them.
So I've always, because I've done some session gigs with ABC when their guitar player wasn't like free. I have known that Bhaskar can do a lot more
Yeah.
that he's not had a chance to do. And my whole selling point was that I want you to sing in a way where people really have to wonder, is it really Anand doing this? Because they haven't heard him do this at all.
Hmm.
Like I remember Ashwin sent the song to someone and he asked, like he wrote back asking whether Roop screamed.
Oh
Like
boy.
there are two options. It's either Roop or it's either Anand. And like he was completely surprised that it was Anand doing. So my whole point of having Anand on board was like I've seen him do these things that I'm like, Are, you can do this as well. And he's like, Yeah, but I just haven't had a chance to do it. So I think people will get to hear that side of him which they have because he's a grunge boy through and through, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah,
always was.
yeah. So it's
So which
actually
is why
it's
I
actually
think
great.
the track is also yeah, sorry, you're saying?
No, I said actually that's a side that you don't really see, right? And
Yes.
or this is a comment actually I can make with a lot of like Indian musicians that I know personally, right? Like there's a whole
Mm.
duality to them, and some side is very public, some side is not really. And that's definitely
Yeah,
something I want to touch upon later in this chat with you
yeah,
also. But go ahead
yeah.
about performing with
Yeah,
Anand.
so I think the track sort of personifies that as well. That, as you said, it's not as, I don't want to call it like industrial, because I don't think even the track with Siddharth was out and out that. But then it this is, I think, more towards rock and less towards the new metal industrial side of it. So I think
Hmm.
Anand sort of, because I always wanted to write something for him,
Hmm.
keeping in mind that he will sing on. So I think the track took that sort of a turn naturally. And yeah, I mean, he got a lot of scope. So I just sent him the track. I'm like, you do what you want to. I don't want to have any say in what you want to do. And I mean, the first time I heard him doing what he did, I was like I was sold, because I wanted him to do it, but again, I was like, karega, nahi karega. I don't want to tell him, ki, Arey, try this, try that, because I mean, he needs his space to do his stuff,
True,
right?
true.
But I think he surprised me. I knew he was going to do it, but he still surprised.
I don't know. Did you ever go as Groovebot on any of the online forums or things like that, or you just came up with
No, no,
Groovebot?
no. So uh, writing music on my own was never even like given a second thought before. All this happened because in lockdown I was like, I have no gigs to play,
Hmm.
and I have all this music lying around that I've not really worked on ever. Like, so some of these things, ideas were with me for a bit, but like they don't fall in that paradigm category or like a hook category. So I had them lying around. So I was like, might as well use this time to do something constructive and release
Yeah,
something. So
yeah.
that's how Groovebot happened. The name was just, I literally wrote down a few options, asked a couple of my friends, and they were like, this sounds the least wackiest. So I think,
Could you humor me and tell me what were some of
oh
the
God.
wacky ones, if you can?
So uh, I remember, so there was a very like a machine dweller or something. So okay, so there's this artist I really listen to, and I'm a huge fan of, named Cell Dweller. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I sort of was trying a wordplay with him and something else, but I mean the word dweller is not used in any name at all. So I was like, it's giving it away, like it's
Yeah, yeah.
totally giving it away. And so no three-letter words, because again, the comparison with Nine Inch Nails will happen. So no three. So I know for a fact I needed something to give that dystopian machine sort of a thing to it, theme to it rather. So bot was always on my mind.
Yeah,
The
okay.
first half was what I sort of was going back and forth with. So I think Groovebot sort of fits. So it just sounded right, and people sort of agreed to it. So
Yeah. That sounds interesting. I mean, like I always am curious because like when I think about it, right? Like a lot of us have some of these our first email IDs on Hotmail or things like
yeah,
that, and then you cringe when you think about it. So that's why I was like,
correct,
were you
correct, correct.
always using Groovebot, right?
No, I never was. But then I think the name sort of tells you what to expect
Hmm.
from the music. So it works.
Yeah. But at this point, I also want to quickly talk about your previous single, right, which you released last year when we originally talked,
Right.
which was the one with Siddharth Basroor.
Hmm.
Uh, Tell me again that because like I see you and I want to definitely touch upon this once we are done talking about the song Gentle Scars, because I really enjoyed that. That was again Siddharth Basroor, kind of in a way we haven't heard him in a while, right? And again,
Right.
I hate to do this, but there are parallels if you think about it between Anand Bhaskar and Siddharth Basroor. Would you agree?
Really? I never
I mean,
thought of it that way.
in terms of just like their career trajectory, right? Both of them doing a lot
Yes.
of
True,
commercial
true, true.
work, and now
Correct,
this is
correct, correct.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? I mean, I'm sure like with Siddharth
So
also.
I told myself I'm gonna try to collaborate with people I've always been like a huge fan of. Like I've heard Basroor sing in everything under the sun, and somehow he ends up sounding as good as any other genre he's sung, right? Even the MS Dhoni song he sung, and I'm like,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
spits this genre perfectly, like and effortlessly. So I was like, let's try approaching them. At the most, they'll say no, right? So I have nothing to lose. So I approached him, and he was like, "Send me the track, man. Why not?" Like and I think everyone was in that zone during the lockdown. That if something good comes across, I will sort of do it to take my mind off or whatever you want to call it. So he got back to me in a couple of days with a voice note and saying, "Ki, this is what I'm planning to do. Tell me if you like it." And I think the vocals stayed 90% the same.
Wow. But
And
I
it
have
so
to say
happened
this.
that, yeah, sorry.
So I have to say this, right? And again, someone who both of us mutually know, Vishal Jay Singh is someone who's worked extensively with Siddharth Basru. So he was telling me that the key about working with Siddharth is Siddharth doesn't think as a vocalist. He's a
Hmm.
composer, so he thinks about all of that, and I think that is
Yeah,
really that X factor in there, which is why he so seamlessly can sing grunge and perform that live, do metal, or
true,
even
yeah.
sing Bollywood playback. Like I still remember watching that MS Dhoni movie and being like blown away. I mean, come on, Siddharth Basura and Keshav Dhar on a track in Bollywood. Who would have thought about
In
that,
Bollywood,
right?
full blown, like big banner Bollywood that
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
not
yeah.
some, yeah. So, I mean, he's brilliant. Also, it so happened that he had this pen down, I think, like a while ago. Like he mentioned like a 3-4 year period when he had this written down, and he didn't have any piece of music that
Hmm.
sort of went along with what he had written down. And he's
Okay.
like, I heard this and I started literally singing these lyrics, and they sort of went along great. So even he was like, I really want to do this, let's do this. And it just turned out perfect. Like,
Yeah.
so it's it tells you that, like, see, good vocalists don't necessarily have to be good musicians. Like,
Hmm.
they can sing, but they need to be able to write and compose. And I
Yeah.
think that is another thing which is common between both Anand and Siddharth, that they're really strong individually as musicians first,
Yeah.
and then they have like their vocal ability to express it, is what I think.
Okay. So since you built this, who's who else is on your wish list now? Come on. Like I've seen a pattern, so I want to know who else is there. And hey, if this is the
But so
first
because
time,
so I haven't started working on the next track,
hmm,
but let's see. Now that you have put me on the spot, I would love to work with Vishwesh from Scribe.
yeah, yeah, it's been a while again with him.
That,
So
yeah. Also, like when I heard Mark of Tija, right, the album,
yeah,
I was like, कि ये है क्या? Like, what is he doing? Like
that
every track was different, and he's done everything from like screaming to like clean vocals to like rapping, or like even if you can call it that
yeah.
for that matter. So I mean, yeah, I think he's far beyond my reach at this point. But
No, it's okay. We'll send him the link to this podcast, and I
yeah.
think that should be enough. Well,
So
if it
man,
ends up happening, you know where you have to premiere it or who made it happen. Just
oh
saying.
yeah, for sure, for sure. We should probably do like a small little episode with him if that happens.
Yeah, yeah. No, but Vishwesh again is someone that's such a versatile singer, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember
So
listening to Mark of Teja the first time, and 100% I was sure that it's not all him, right? Like he's got someone else to help, but yeah, that was all him.
it was all him. And so again, so as a like a listener or like someone who's watched Cry play and has heard all of the music for so, and they were like way ahead of the curve, right? They did it when it wasn't cool.
Yeah.
So I am just super excited to sort of know how and what he'll do. Like I have no idea. Like is something will come back and I'll be totally like this wasn't expected. So I think with him you might not know what he has in mind or what he can do to your song.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just since it's out there now, hopefully the
Yeah.
universe puts it together.
Yeah, yeah. But I have to ask you, right? And I think one of the things, since I'm talking, and I actually talked earlier about the duality aspect, right? And when I was thinking about you, I realized that what you do is work as a producer and engineer in your day job, right? And you're
Yeah,
also the musician. And you have that when you're working on other people's music or other commercial projects, and then you're working on there. How does that balance happen in there, right? I'm very curious because let's be honest, right? In independent music in India doesn't pay the bills. So this is where
definitely.
you have to kind of work, and it literally becomes, how do I say? There's something that pays the bills and something that pays the soul. Let's put it that way, right?
Right. So I mean, with me, this whole music production bit is a new venture, we can say, because it's not happened for more than a couple of years. So, because before that, I was just so caught up playing commercial gigs, like as a guitar player, and also tutoring on the side when I wasn't touring, because you have off seasons as well,
Yeah.
and then you are like, what do I do for those 3 months? So, I always had my teaching gig on.
Hmm.
So, I was so stuck in that loop that I never
Hmm.
bothered to even think about all this. I think looking at the brighter side of what sort of lockdown did for me
Hmm.
personally is it sort of gave me a chance to take a beat and be like, okay, this is also something which I, because unknowingly I was doing similar work with my band, like
Okay.
actively taking role in songwriting or
Hmm.
like being sort of the first person to be like, okay, I've recorded this at home. See what you guys can add to it. So I'm like, this is just an extension of that. It's not like I have to learn a craft from scratch.
True. True.
So because I was able to sort of get out of that loop that I was in pre the lockdown happening, I think it gave me a chance to be like, this is something I do naturally. So maybe I should give this a shot.
All
And
right.
I think because Paradigm had been playing for several years by that point,
Hmm.
people knew me as a guitar player, like Paradigm Shift
Yeah.
and Hook. So I think they just needed to sort of know me in another light, like a new light. Okay, he can produce as well, or he can
Hmm.
mix it as well, and
Yeah.
like we can approach him for these things. So the initial bit was spreading the word around and working with people, so which is why Groovebot also made sense because it was all me, like except
Yeah.
the vocal bits, it was all me. So that also sort of showcases things without really being like, acha, काम दो. So I think it was like a double-edged sword of that sort. Yeah, it did
Yeah.
both.
But how I'm trying to just like to go a little bit deeper, right, into what you're talking. While it
Yeah,
all seems that it's very seamless, but at some point, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's literally like you have to kind of switch hats in there because there's the
yes, I do.
there's the objective side and the subjective side, right? Like I'm sure with your own music, you're far more, attached to it. You can't really be too objective. But with someone else's music, and that's a switch of just mindset, right? Like, okay, this is
Yeah.
not something I need to be too married to, and this is something I'm really married to. So how does that, how
Yeah.
do you kind of distinguish
So
that?
I
Or
think that has been a part of uh, my journey as a producer or as a
hmm,
songwriter. Like I now know how to approach different situations better. So like even with Groovebot, if you hear the very first track, which is Toxic. I did that with Pratika. So that was a guitar player who started writing a different genre and is sort of finding his space. So I understood that I work a lot better for this sound at least if I keep my primary instrument aside, and
Okay.
that comes on later. So both these songs, if you sort of look at it critically, they are not guitar driven the
Hmm.
way the first song was. So a guitar is just another instrument, and that switch is what I had to figure out. That I
Hmm.
can't be a guitar playing writing things. So
Hmm.
I need to be a producer who can play guitar. So that, as you said,
Wow.
like the subjective and the objective. So that sort of helps. So I think where I sort of can do something extra as a producer is I know to play guitar well, and that's all it needs to be.
Yeah.
So
No.
I think that is a journey of you growing as a producer, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, right? Because like when I'm just understanding the role of a producer, it's to see what's good for the entire sound overall, right? You're not
Yes,
just looking at certain instruments or certain things. And how do you kind of maybe not only just add stuff, but also maybe sometimes just strip away some stuff, right? And I think that's a very critical thing, especially like when I think about it, like with rock music, and especially in the last 8-10 years, we've seen the whole thing about the loudness wars, right? How everything has to sound like brick walled and all of that. And
competitive.
yeah. And then you have like, I mean, I have to go back to Vishal Jaising and a Moog Symphony. Like I remember listening to that. I think it was their third album, and just going like, did they forget to master it, or what did they do with this? Right? I'm sure you
Right.
heard it and you're familiar with what I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about. And then like Vishal explaining that that was a purposeful thing that they did. I was just like, wow. Like it's
Correct.
not something that you kind of think about, right?
Yeah, and I think that is what it means to stay like true to your art. Like for Vishal, it is like he he obviously did start Amok Symphony to follow any norms. There are no norms. So
Uh,
I think also I remember thinking the same about
I think this was Quantum Hack,
Opeth's
right?
album,
Oh, really?
Sauce, which was the album with had that tree on it, the artwork, Sorceress, right?
Heritage, I think.
No, wait, no, one of their albums, and it came out, and I was like, what is this?
Hmm.
But in a good way. So I think, yeah, they sort of chose to not go down that path, and like
Wait, are you
full
talking
marks
about
to
like
them.
the older ones, Blackwater Park and all?
I remember the artwork. There was a tree on
Okay, hang on.
an
I
Opeth album.
Oh, Heritage. It's Heritage itself. Yeah.
Heritage,
Yeah,
yes.
it's all
So
their
it's
heads.
not correct. So I was like, I mean, you can do this too, right? It's you can always learn something from everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think something that came to me post I started writing and producing actively.
Hmm.
Like you have to stop critiquing things at one point and sort of see what you can take from it and how you can apply it somewhere.
Okay. All right. Chinmay, since you've talked about just wearing that producer hat, could you share some of
Mhm.
the recent projects or music that you worked on? I'm sure some of our listeners are very curious to know.
So I work like I'm mixing mastered a band from Bangalore. They
Okay.
call the Pancha Shop,
Okay.
and it's again a very unique sound. It's like a stoner rock sort of a vibe. So very
Okay.
old school. So I got a chance to sort of not do the usual bright, uh, polished masters that they used to. So
Hmm.
I got a chance to sort of try that out, and they released a couple of songs. So that was something I worked on. I worked with Siddharth and Vishal on their album for the library.
Yeah.
So that's supposed to be punk, but it's Siddharth and Vishal writing, so it's sort of gets progressive
Yeah.
ultimately, and then but it's instrumental, so that's something you have not heard for sure. And some of the parts are just oof, like I wish it had vocals on it. They're
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So
When,
about the lineup, right? Siddharth and Vishal. I mean,
hmm. Yeah.
and Basur not singing, just playing instruments and
Yeah.
producing, writing.
Yeah. No,
So
and from what I remember, that had been in the works for a while. So I'm glad that finally saw the light. Uh,
from what I know, a decade, like 8 years
wow.
or so. So because I remember talking to Vishal and Siddharth when the first sort of call happened, and both of them were like, "Bro, we're fed up. Like if someone else doesn't do this, this will not come out. Like we're done. So just do whatever you want. Make sure it sounds good. Send it to us. Listen to it once, and just say yes or no. There is going to be no feedback because the feedback has happened for a decade. So yeah,
But yeah, we'll definitely leave
and
links to both
I
the
sort of
projects.
yeah, and again, now that we're talking about this, I worked with Vishal on a project called Feathers of Jatinga. So I remember Vishal played those songs for me in 2011,
Yeah.
and I think a couple of them were already out, but as for some reason it's Vishal. So for some reason he didn't put the songs out, and I was behind his life. If you do this, then you would have probably been touring right now, like outside the country that way, because it's that good, right? It's like Poets of the Fall meets Catatonia, and then
Hmm.
like Vishal happens, like a love
Yeah.
child. So I mean, I was behind his life to release those songs as a listener. That too, I was not supposed to be a part of this, but finally, he's like, Chinnu, I want to revive Feathers, and you've been behind me to release songs. So how about you play guitar on it and mix or master, whatever? Like we'll share roles. So I
Okay.
got to do that, and that song is out too. So
Thanks for telling me, Chinmay, that there's more music out because I'm also equally curious to hear the rest of it. And
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, there's a new singer also. So I think that's going to be
yes,
great to kind of
yes.
see in there. But you know what? I have to kind of ask you this, and especially since you spoke about just the fact that you enjoyed playing live. So to come full circle in there, considering now you've got three tracks, three different vocalists, but okay, they're all Mumbai based. Any chance
Mm.
or any kind of inclination to kind of get Groovebot live, maybe for a one-off gig, if not like longer than that?
Uh, Honestly, I haven't thought about it. It's gonna be a task to because I have to get organized from my end. Because right now they are just stems in my DAW, right? In my system. So, but hopefully, if I have, I would love to do an all original set. So, if I have like material worth, say 45 minutes to an hour, then maybe. This is also why collab with all Mumbai vocalists sort of makes sense because that is one logistical problem Ashwin won't have to worry.
Oh, wow. But hey, you know what? It's been great chatting with you, Chinmay, and I'm glad we finally got to do this. So I wish you all the best
Yeah,
with your production work, Groovebot, and yeah, hopefully we see each other soon.
yeah, some kick-ass gig probably in
Yeah,
Bombay.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
And that was Chinmay Agarkar, aka Groovebot. It's always fun to talk to musicians, especially those who have multiple facets to them. In this case, being a music producer. And yeah, I definitely learned a lot from that chat. I hope you did too. Like I said in the start, hit subscribe below and, just stay tuned to what I'm up to. You can also follow me on Trend Crusher on all social media platforms. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, just write into me. And yeah, That's all for this week. I'll see you guys next week. Cheers.